Hello. Hello, Steve Lawrence McElroy here for Water Tiger School, Taijiquan. So, we're back into our Tai Chi portion of the rotation on our YouTube channel for this week. So we'll get more about what that means in a little while and then dig into it even deeper when it comes up as we get to that part of today's video. I want to start as normal with the t-shirt. I know it's sort of silly, red back there, red here, but they are different shades. So I don't think I'll disappear as I stand in front of our sign. You might notice World Tai Chi Day and 10th anniversary. This was the '09 World Tai Chi Day. First World Tai Chi Day was in 1999. Understand it was quite a party. And it's only the second time that I've worn it on the YouTube channel. The first time was in September of the first year, so 2020. And it was for a Water Tiger for Sachem Facebook Live session where we focused on the stationary Waidan Tai Chi Qigong exercises from the Water Tiger School lineage. So anyway, so there's that. Speaking of 2024, we started this, or we launched the YouTube channel in the spring, in late March, after the world stopped in 2020, primarily to reach out to those people who were in a number of our public classes that were suspended because of home lockdown. And we just decided, once things became unlocked, that we would keep going. You might notice that we don't edit anything. We shoot straight through. We don't do banners. We don't do hyperlinks. We don't do anything except present you the why of what you're doing, as opposed to simply the what. If you want to know the what, if you just want to find somebody to follow, we ain't for you. That's just the way it is. We really want to focus on the why. But anyway, so I'm going to hop off my little soapbox there. So the title of today's video is If Part of Me, All of Me. And that's a reference to a Tai Chi principle that's very dear to Water Tiger School's heart. And it's usually expressed as, if part of me moves, all of me moves. If part of me is still, all of me is still. And while that's a theme that has been woven through all of our Tai Chi focus over the last 4 years, we thought it'd be nice to just pull it out and focus solely on it in a single video. And by the way, there are two levels to if part of me moves, all of me moves. If part of me is still, all of me is still. And we'll get to that when we get to that portion of the session. You're going to need, for the warm-up, for the stretch, some tools. So before we do the aerobic warm-up, which we won't do right now because I want to point out, we have a yoga block. You need something with some height on which you can set your foot for this particular stretch. Yoga block works great. A brick, maybe. Something that works that way. You will also have, for two reasons, the option of using dumbbells. One, to replace the block. You don't have a block, but you have a dumbbell. You can rest the ball of your foot on the handle of the dumbbell, just as you would on the top of the yoga block. The other reason that you might want weight is it intensifies the stretch. And we'll get to that when we get to the Soleus Gastroc Stretch after aerobic warm-up. So now's the time. If you don't have something with you, hit pause, come back, we'll be waiting for you. So a little aerobic warm-up. We're gonna, there are variations here. We're going to do, I'm gonna count to 10 for each of them. We're gonna start with a march. You may want to just keep marching throughout, and that's okay, right? Because I'm gonna go from a march to a little run, to a little jumping jacks. And again, as we're doing all this, you can simply march, right? Don't knock yourself out. When we run, you might want to just up the ante on the march. The jumping jacks can be like this. We're not doing full jacks, we're doing sort of half jacks, but they should look like this. And then we're going to do jump rope. And again, with an invisible rope, an imaginary one, but you can also just twirl your wrists and do little kicks. And we're going to do 2 rounds of that for aerobic warm-up. So brace yourselves. We just want to get the blood flowing a little bit. We want to get some oxygen through the body, and this will do it. So I'm going to start. I'm going to go for a little while before I start the first count. Breathing, relaxing, and releasing. Oh, by the way, we don't do music either. If you haven't noticed. Kind of low key. Again, just focusing on what we are presenting to you. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm running. You can still be marching. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to skip the march. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And shake that out. Kick it out. You can probably hear my breath has deepened. My heart is beating. A little bit more vigor. That's what we want. So, as you may have heard, as I bent over to grab my props, this is called a Soleus Gastroc Stretch. In the simplest of terms, the soleus is the lower calf muscle. The gastroc is the upper calf muscle. This involves a forward fold. It involves some play with the knee because there are two aspects to it. And there are all sorts of different modifications. You can use lighter to no weights. That's one. Foot lower. So the higher up on the foot, the more the angle. Right? Well, not the higher, but as I go deeper, right? The higher the angle, that's what I meant to say. The more intense. The lower the angle, less intense. The degree that you bend your knee for the soleus stretch, because that's going to be what focuses more on the lower calf muscle. The gastroc, you straighten the leg as you do the forward fold. And the forward fold, the depth of the forward fold, can also be a modification point. So with weights or not, we're going to do 6 pairs on each leg. So I'm going to grab my weight here because I like that kind of pain. I'm going to go up rather high on my foot. I'm starting right, you can start left. And so I'm keeping my back mostly straight, bending down and feeling that stretch again around just above the Achilles tendon and breathing. Now I'm going to come up, straighten the leg and go down, 1 and 1, and that goes higher into the calf muscle. And when I'm down here, when the knee is bent, my hand's above my knee just for support. When I am doing the gastroc portion, I'm making sure my leg is straight. I'm going to come up. Here's 2. And I'm working on also dorsiflexing my foot. You can see my toes are pointed up. Coming up, straightening, and 2. Coming up and bending, going down, 3. Coming up, straightening, 3. Coming up, bending, 4. Coming up, straightening. This back knee is open. Coming up. 5. Coming up, straightening. 5. Coming up, bending. 6. Coming up, straightening. 6. Set the weight down. I'm going to shake that leg out. So there's one side. As in everything that we do, the left isn't the right and the right isn't the left. So you keep that in mind. Since I'm doing the left foot now, I'm putting the weight in the left hand. Finding the right spot. Bending the knee. There's 1. Coming up, straightening. And 1, dorsiflexing the foot, pulling the toes back toward me. Coming up, bending. 2. Coming up, straightening. 2. Coming up, bending. 3. Just a couple of breaths, 2 or 3, or 4, depending upon your breath capacity. Coming up, straightening. 3. Coming up, bending. 4. Coming up, straightening. 4. Coming up, bending. 5. Coming up, straightening. 5. Coming up, bending. 6. Coming up, straightening. 6. I'm going to come up first this time instead of lowering myself. And there you go. Little Soleus Gastroc Stretch for you. Stretching out the base and the top of the calf muscle. So, when it comes to if part of me moves, all of me moves. If part of me is still, all of me is still. As I mentioned earlier, there are sort of 2 categories, 2 aspects of that. Both are equally important. There's an esoteric meaning, there's a practical meaning. Although the esoteric is important, our focus tends to be weighted more toward the practical. If for no other reason, the esoteric sort of makes sense with the art of Tai Chi. Actually, the practical should as well. But anyway, the practical side is where we are going to focus. You might remember, again, back at the very beginning, May 14th of 2020, we shot more or less, it's a combination. If you think I talk a lot now, because this video was about the 10 essential points from Chen Tseng Feng. So we discussed each one and sort of addressed it physically. And his 10th point is like a great river, flow unceasingly. And that's what we're talking about here, flow. A river doesn't stop. So as we get to the movement in today's video, that's where the focus is going to be. And we have 4 aspects of the 24 posture form that we're going to address for that idea. If part of me moves, all of me moves. If part of me is still, all of me is still. And the practical side of that is if I'm moving, everything is moving. If any part stops, then theoretically, there should be no movement anywhere. So that's that side of it. The esoteric side could simply translate as stillness in motion. In other words, within motion, there is stillness. And within stillness, there is motion. So it's that idea of all movement is calm and relaxed, but all movement, all relaxed movement has intent. So that's sort of the more esoteric side of the coin. But again, we're going to focus on that idea of flow. We once had a student on the mat years ago, like 20 years ago, who coined the phrase that we still use today. In any form that you play, there are actually only two movements. You open and you close. And everything else is just continuous. Because you start in that stillness, in one of the points that we would say is Wu Qi. You expand out of Wu Qi, you move into the form, and when you close, you return to Wu Qi. So you step out of stillness, you step into stillness, and those are the two movements. Everything else is just flow. Another way we express this through the idea of whole body movement is something happens upstairs, something happens downstairs. I can't believe I went through the entire warm-up and I still have my mint. I know none of you come here to watch the Tai Chi stuff. You just come to watch me model my t-shirts and finish my mint. So, those four things that we're going to focus on from the 24. Opening, parting the wild horse's mane, with some references to other postures. Grasp sparrow's tail, which is 4 postures for water tiger school, and closing. I have my blue lines. If you know this video series, you know that they're here for my shoulder width. So for instance, when we talk about moving, when we talk about opening, stepping out to my shoulder width. So both opening and closing have some subtleties in whole body movement, but they're there. And again, the idea is something happens downstairs, something happens upstairs. And you go into your first movement of the form. So if I'm going to do this full front to you, just keep in mind our basic vertical alignment. Our base is shoulder width. There are some postures that aren't shoulder wide. Some might go beyond it. But this is my shoulder width. Where the drop of the shoulder is, should split the heel in half on both sides. Feet ideally parallel. But if you have a little abduction, a little adduction, that's okay. Just be careful that your knees are always aligned with your toes. And we'll get more into that as we do actual postures. My perineum, base of the pelvic bowl, the Hu Yin, the bottom of the C, anchored toward the earth. That puts the hips under the torso under the shoulders. The chest is slightly sunk. The back is slightly rounded. And when we say rounded, I was recently reminded that some people, when I just say the chest is sunk and the back is rounded, that some people think the rounding is this way. And for some lineages, it is. But our rounding is that concave, convex, the spreading, like the shoulders opening, the scapula opening like wings. So it rounds more horizontally, not vertically. Chin from parallel, slight tuck down that puts the crown point of the head, held, not lifted, up to the heavens. And just above, straight line between the crown point of the head and the base of the pelvic bowl. That allows the spine to hang like a string of pearls. That's our basic structure. So when we open, again, I'm going to do full frontal first. Hands on the acupuncture point for the Xia Dantian. So between the belly button and the pubic bone, closer to the pubic bone than the belly button, is the acupuncture point for the Xia Dantian. More or less the way we describe it in shorthand is where the elbow folds and that hand comes into the lower abdominal cavity. That's about where it belongs. And though other people have different opinions, it's ours to sort of just judge which hand feels like it belongs next to your body. My feet are together or as close together as is comfortable for me. Weight is equally distributed between the two. Knees are open. They're open now, they're open when I step to shoulder width. And the reason that we refer to this as Wu Qi is no extremities straight. No extremities straight. State. I still didn't get it right. Rented lips. Nothing on the inside, nothing on the outside. Nothing on the inside means the mind is calm and clear. Nothing on the outside, no tension. From no extremities to two kingdoms. Pay attention. Weight is settling, hands are dropping down. Weight is settling, vertical alignment into that foot, hands are dropping. Both of those things in at the same time. Hands and feet separate as the hands reach, as the hands reach their extension, the foot is in place. The time it takes my hands to extend up and out is the time I center the body between the feet. As the hands come in, my heel's starting to descend, going down, the heel descends. Once it comes into contact in the earth, wherever that is, I'm settling into the broader stance. So settling is very subtle, but it's movement through the whole body. Then up a second time, there's an internal wave in the body. If I turn sideways for profile and externalize it, you see that wave. That wave is up and out, in. I'm beginning to settle the weight into the right, pressing down, turning that foot to the 45 depending upon the form, settling the weight into it. And if it's the 24, I'm going to go in to form the ball, to form the first step of the 24. Little casual closing. Notice again that I'm sinking down at this point, so when I stand up out of it, my hands come to the dantian. So both throughout opening and even a casual close, I want to keep both the upper body and the lower body engaged. A lot of people will do like a casual close, like from that point where I was. And here I'm lengthening. And then they just move their hands to the belly. We want either came up, sunk down, I'll do what I did the first time. And then I have the rise up that pulls the hands in. I can be there, come up, and sink down, and bring the hands into the dantian. So that's the idea. I'm going to do it facing away from you, going to my left for opening in the 24. Something happens upstairs, something happens downstairs. It's like you're both puppeteer and puppet. So I am judging the time it takes for my hands to drop down. That's the time it takes, even though it's a very short distance, for my alignment to settle into that, for my alignment to settle into that, for my alignment to settle into that right foot. My hands separate. As they're by my hips, that foot should be down. Up over the center of the feet, up over the top of the ball, in, heels descending, down, heels descending. There it's touched. So now I'm settling down. Up a second time, that internal wave, I'm externalizing it a little bit. And then pressing down. To move into that first step. One more time, profile. Oops, I want to make sure my feet are visible. Should put a line this way too so I knew what was on camera. Thanks, crew. Breathing, relaxing and releasing, settling the weight, hands dropping down. Hands and feet separate. As soon as the hands get there, that ball, that foot is there to take the weight. As soon as the ball of the foot is there, I move into the center. In, down, settling through the two legs and the torso. Up, internal wave. Down, this leg is lengthening as I'm pivoting into the right foot, forming the ball, forms the step. And that's the opening sequence. With everything moving, right? The idea isn't yeah, I know, and I sort of really added robot to that, didn't I? But you want to feel that flow through the body. You want to make sure that everything is connected and everything is moving. So our second focus is parting the wild horse's mane. And we sort of already addressed one of the major issues that people have there when they're seeking to do what it is that we do. If for no other reason, part of it can be the learning process, because when we do the learning process, it's very staccato. It's like first do this, then do that, then do that. Keeping in mind, we say this, keeping in mind that there should be flow. But a lot of people get to that point where they've opened, they form the ball, and then they step. And we want to make sure that as the ball forms, the step is there, so as soon as the ball is there, you can move into your posture. And this is Water Tiger School's end of posture for parting the wild horse's mane. So, I am in a left fore stance for us. Left foot is forwards. For some people, this is a right fore stance because the weight started in the right. My left hand is palm back to the center of my chest. It's not out too far. It's not in too close. It's just right. The Goldilocks principle. My right hand, which was at the top of the ball, the left hand's from the bottom of the ball, has kind of gone elevator down, joint to joint in both instances. And it's in the front plane of the torso, aside and in front of the right hip, sort of like I'm dribbling a basketball. That's the end of posture. The beginning is the ball. But again, the idea is forming the ball forms the step. From the step, I'm at a 45. I'm still facing the 45. When I move into my fore stance, the other thing that we need to keep in mind, knee over ankle, safest. Knee over top of the foot, okay. Knee over beyond toes, very bad. Tai Chi is always good for your knees. It can actually reverse damage for some folks. But if you come to Tai Chi with healthy knees and you don't pay attention to knee and toe placement, you can end up needing a referral to an orthopedist. So you want to make sure knee and toe, same direction. Back foot grounded, not only to the inside of the instep, but the outside of the instep. Boom. About 70% of the weight on the front leg, about 30% of the weight on the back, the heel is down. So we're going to take some steps. There are 5 aspects to our stepping. But again, they flow. It's not 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. They flow one into the other. So I'm going to walk toward you. I'm going to start forming the ball. Actually, I'm going to start with the double weighted so I can move into that right foot and start forming the ball. And by the time the ball is there, the foot is there. So I move into 1 is the step. There's 2. 3 is a rock back and release. 4 is a pivot to around a 45-degree angle. And 5 is forming the ball. Just form the step, which is 1. There's 2. Rock back is 3. There's 4 is the pivot. And 5 is forming the ball. And by the time the ball is completely done, the foot is there to take the step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to take one more step. 1, 2, no 3, 4, and 5. A casual close up over the top of the ball, bringing the back foot in. I'm lengthening. And now I'm setting down. And that's the flow of parting the wild horse's mane. Note the difference between that and so I'm going to do a pass away from you. I'm actually going to start a little bit differently this time. I'm going to start with my feet on my blue lines at my shoulder width. I'm going to bounce the weight to the left. So again, sort of another way to get into a whole body movement and movement from beginning to end. So I'm stationary, I'm still. I shift the weight over to the left to turn out the right foot. I bounce the weight into the right, forming the ball to form the step. There's the left heel down. As soon as the left heel is down, once the ball is formed, there's my first horse's mane. Parting the wild horse's mane, rock back, pivot. Come up, forming the ball, forming the step. Ball is there, foot is there. There's 2. Rock back, pivot. Forming the ball forms the step. There's 3. Rock back, turn out. And every posture will have something that is its form the ball moment. I'm going to close. In other words, a moment that could be held, right? Repulse the monkey. As we're moving into repulse the monkey from Pei Pa, some people might stop in the upper body and finish the step and then move into it. But what repulse the monkey for us, from a water tiger school perspective, again, everything's moving. Boom. That I reach the ready movement moment, which is hand forward, hand back, as the ball of the foot touches down, so then all I have to do is fill it. That's repulse the monkey. Brush knee, step and strike. As my arms move into a backward motion and I'm looking that way, the heel is down, so as soon as I should actually be here. Let's do that again. I'll come out of white crane. So that makes more sense. Again, everything's moving, and including into the end of posture. That hand doesn't get there and set and wait for the other hand. And again, some of you might, if you're not familiar with Water Tiger School and brush knee, step and strike, might be going, but his hand's supposed to be here. There's a reason that we do this. Go back and find the brush the knee video. But both hands are pushing the palm, settling the wrist at the same time to finish the posture. Rock back. Now as I take a step, once that foot releases, the hand releases, hand and knee meet, foot is down, and you step into it. So there's no stop waiting for part of the body to do something before another part of the body does it. Everything is moving. You just have to have proprioception and kinesthesia, which from our perspective is awareness of the body in space and awareness of the body in space in motion. So there's some posture stuff. More posture stuff with grasp sparrow's tail. For us, it's the 4 postures of ward off, roll back, press, and push. And for us, it's in 4 stance. So again, left foot a little bit forward, making it a left 4 stance. And we have, from this, a shift forward, a shift back, a shift forward, a full back stance, maybe bringing the ball of the foot up off the ground, and a roll forward. And the upper body for that is forming the ball to form the step. Left hand throws a frisbee up and out. Right hand is an underhand pitch. They both reach the end of their extensions at the same time. Roll back. And notice I'm not stopping in this leg as I move up and then move forward. That I'm actually finishing roll back as I'm starting to shift forward. Press, bounces into push, and push goes back to forming the ball to form the step, and ward off, and roll back, and press, and set back, and push, and back to form the ball to form the step, and ward off, and roll back. I remember over 20 years ago when I first moved to Long Island, and I'm going to switch sides, so I'm going to bring the right foot back, the left foot back. That's the left foot back. There's a reason for that. I'll explain it in a moment. Boom. Step the right foot forward into right 4 stance, ward off. Roll back. I was doing a lot of networking, and I ended up in an apartment complex on the beach. Rock back, form the ball, form the step. Ward off, roll back, bouncing into the beginning of press, finishing press. It pulses into push, and we'll do one more. And I was waiting for the people with whom I was meeting, looking out the window and watching the waves roll up. And that's what this movement reminds me of, is the water rolling up inshore, pulling back out into the ocean, getting caught up in the next wave, and coming forward back onto the beach. A little casual close. So the thing with calling my left foot my right, Water Tiger School has recently been contracted to do a program, and it's a new approach for me. It's experiential instead of teaching, though you'd never guess that I still talk a lot. Because it's still the why, it's not just the what. There's so much more to what we're doing than just, mimicking movement. But anyway, and I do a mirror image. So I have to constantly remember that, my left hand is the top of the ball as I settle the weight into my left foot. No, this is my right hand and that's my right foot. And it tends to bleed into other things now. So I'm going to do both sides, facing away. Let's see if I can get this in my feet, with my feet. I really should put a line there. All right, I'm going to start with a bounce over to my left like I did the last time I was facing away from you. Forming the ball to form the step. There's a ward off. Here's roll back. And again, notice I'm not going to hold the weight in the back leg. It bounces forward. And here's push. Making sure my hips stay square and push. There's a tendency, forming the ball to form the step. I did that wrong because I was talking about something else and thinking about it. Ward off. Roll back. Press. There's a tendency in push to turn toward that back hip instead of staying full front. Push. That was a little sloppy. Ward off. Roll back. Press. Sit back. Push. I'm going to bring the left foot back. See, I held it the left foot. It took me a moment there. Form the ball to form the step. There's a ward off. Roll back, maintaining vertical alignment, not leaning to my left as I do a left roll back. Press and push, setting the weight into the left foot, forming the ball to form the step. Ward off. Roll back. Press. Push. One more to put a cap on it. Forming the ball forms the step. Ward off. Roll back. Press. And push. And a little casual close. Again, notice I'm lengthening as the hands go down. Settling to pull the hands to the acupuncture point for the lower field of elixir, the Shia Dantian. And there we go. There's 3. Kind of held up 4 fingers there. So 4 is closing, which you've already sort of experienced because we've been doing the casual closing. So, the more formal closing, if you will, of a form such as the 24. Again, notice we refer to it as the 24 posture form, or the Young style 24 posture form, or the medium frame Young style 24 posture form, and we might throw short in there, short form. We do not any longer refer to it as the standardized, because everybody does this stuff differently. It's interesting, watching 2 young stylists playing the 24 side by side, if they are not of the same lineage. We focused on that a lot over the last 4 years, on differences think there's a video out there that's differences in how people get into white crane, how people get into pei pa, etc. And again, we address ours and why we do it. We address theirs sometimes and why they do it. And, you know, normally my response is always, you know, why do you do it your way? Because it works for us. That doesn't mean that sometimes I'm introduced to something that somebody does differently and, oh no, I will never change. There's a video out there that's evolution, but it's really kind of more about the stretches. But there's plenty throughout this series on YouTube that addresses all the different evolutions that we have in our forms. And there might be more to come. So closing, a more formal closing. We come out of, in our version of the 24, we've just finished parry and punch, separate fist, push, embrace the tiger, return to mountain, and my right heel's in the air. I'm pressing down, I'm redistributing the weight, and I'm bringing my left toes forward. Then that internal wave again, up through the body, brings the weight into, and the left heel comes up off the ground. The right foot drawing in, and the time it takes to bring my foot in the air or across the ground is the time it takes for my hands to come in. And then as I press down, I'm lengthening. I could also press down and shorten. Just so I have that motion to bring the hands into the belly. Right? So if I'm doing back here, I think it's about here, right? Hey, I remembered. I've done my parry and punch, my elbow wrap, moving into drawing that bow and separate fist, the sweeping version of push, bring my left toes with me, turn my right toes a little bit, embrace the tiger, return to mountain, and again, moving those toes, redistributing the weight, up a second time, the time it takes for my hands to move up and out is the time it takes crown point of the head to get over the ball of the right foot, hands in, foot in, pressing down. Lengthening, knee pop is optional, and bringing the hands into the dantian. And if this is your first time watching the video and you got to the end and go, okay, why the hell did he just slam the ball of his foot into the earth? I have no answer, except I like to do that, and I always have. So I did have what's it called? A wart anyway, on one of my toes a couple of years ago, and I had to quit doing that for a while because it was very painful with the wart on the toe. There's the video. If part of me moves, all of me moves. We never, from opening to closing, we don't want anything to stop. At all. Like for instance, you finish parry and punch and separate fist and you hold that wrist in the same position. No. See, it folds and then moves into the sweeping push. Right? You're not back here in brush knee putting this hand in this position and then keeping all the fingers and everything still and just moving the arm. You could, theoretically, go into parting the wild horse's mane and simply rotate in the shoulder and no other joint moves. And you'd probably be okay from the bottom of the ball to out in front of the center of the chest. But you want to feel shoulder into upper arm into elbow joint into forearm, forearm into wrist, wrist into the 5 of the 1. I could just poke, from the top of the ball and just elevate her right straight down. But it waves. As has been said, We are ugly bags of mostly water. We want to embrace the water. Embrace your liquid self. And move like water. Be water, my friends. So, thank you for your time and attention. We should be back in 3 weeks. We're kind of planning maybe a biggie for the Qigong rotation this time. We've never done a full set of anything. It's always been bits and pieces of things. But we may actually literally sit down and do a full set. We'll see. No promises. The sitting 8 pieces brocade is what we're thinking about in Q, but it may not happen. So there's a forward that may be false. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it gave you something to chew on, play with, explore, disregard, whatever. I would say that we monitor the posts, but apparently we don't, because people have been posting and comments, and we're not getting an opportunity to preview them. So, but we will get rid of anything that flames us. If somebody's a little rude, and that's happened, we might leave it up. We have. But, just be nice. Constructive criticism always appreciated, and your understanding for what it is we're trying to do here would also be appreciated. We'll also share a link with this on our Facebook page, Water Tiger Tai Chi. And take care, and you'll see us the next time.